Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Whistle. We are a new sports show located in Boise, Idaho, where we will be talking about all sports from the professional, collegiate, and local level. We will be your hosts throughout this season. I'm Alex East.
I'm Christy Amstutz.
And I'm Andrew Vincent.
We each have a desire to enter the sports industry, and we offer a youthful, energetic, and even female voice to the sports world. Sorry, Andrew. I hope to be reporting from the sidelines of all your favorite football games.
And hopefully you'll see me on the sidelines of all your favorite baseball games.
And I plan on bringing you all your sports news from the anchor desk.
On this week's episode of Beyond the Whistle, we will be discussing college football and basketball, the most influential trades and signings in baseball, Boise State football and basketball team, and lastly, Boise's very own minor league hockey team, the Idaho Steelheads.
As Alex said, we're going to be covering a wide range of topics on Beyond the Whistle. But for today, let's start with our sports news nationwide. Who makes the cut for college football playoffs, college basketball craziness, and MLB free agency frenzy? Let's talk college football first. Going into championship weekend, who are y'all's top 4 teams, and who do you think will make the playoffs?
I think that's very indicative on the SEC championship this weekend, as well as that Big Ten championship. I think we can safely say that none of those Pac-12 teams are going to be making it, just based off of that Oregon loss to Utah.
Yeah.
But I think if Georgia wins, I think Alabama's out unless Michigan loses.
Do you think Notre Dame can sneak in?
From what I've heard, I think that Brian Kelly leaving has played a big role in the college playoff committee, keeping Notre Dame out.
I also think it's interesting. I think 1 through 6, I think they all still have somewhat of a chance. But I think it's interesting the difference between Oklahoma State and Notre Dame, because Oklahoma State holds their fate in their own hands. They play number 9 Baylor this weekend for their championship, whereas Notre Dame doesn't have a championship, as we all know.
Yeah.
So they're kind of sitting back and waiting for losses. But, like you said, with Georgia and Bama, we know one of them is going to lose. So either number 1 or number 3 is going to lose. I think if Georgia, number 1, loses, they still have a chance to get in.
That's the question that
I think Georgia will
ask.
definitely get in no matter what, because they've just been dominant the entire season.
Yeah.
And I think it's also pretty safe to say that anyone past 6 is not going to be sneaking into the playoffs anymore.
I think there'd have to be...
Because, everyone past 6 is 2 losses.
Two
and they're
losses.
super strict on that,
Yeah.
to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, however, I do think that Alabama can still get in with 2 losses if it's a close game to Georgia, just because of how dominant Georgia's been this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
And
agree.
because of the strength of schedule that SEC has over other conferences.
I agree.
I would say Oklahoma State has the best chance of getting in if Alabama loses.
I agree. Do we think the College Football Playoff Committee snubs Cincinnati since they're a group of 5?
I don't know. It's going to...
It's hard to say, because I think that, Cincinnati is a team here that is undefeated, and that is a very strong thing to have going into the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
However, you have to look at these Power 5 conferences, and Cincinnati is not a Power 5 conference. And I honestly think that they would not perform well at all if they made it.
Yeah, that's the
through
risk
those
you take, is
playoffs.
if you put Cincinnati in and then they end up playing a team like Georgia, they're probably going to get smoked.
Probably, but I like to play devil's advocate. We are Boise State.
Yeah.
We are a group of 5.
Yeah.
And back when Boise State was in its most powerful days, Kellen Moore era, I think a lot of people would have advocated for Boise State to make a playoff at some point. And so I think Cincinnati, I'm kind of rooting for them, but I don't think they have an easy, I think everyone's kind of brushing off their playoff or their championship game as this easy thing. But they're playing number 21 Houston this week. So I don't
Houston
think
has had a good season.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a big game
Yeah,
to prove
big
that
game.
they're ready for it. But
So let's say Iowa beats Michigan and Georgia beats
Interesting.
Bama.
Ooh.
So we have those 2 losses. And then we have Oklahoma State, let's say, wins Big 12 championship. Do we think Bama still gets in over Michigan?
No, I think Michigan and Bama will be out, and you'll see Oklahoma State and Notre Dame go above them because they're
Really?
2 loss.
Yeah. However,
It is Alabama, though.
that's the
Like,
argument
and
every
you know
week
the
is
committee,
it's Alabama.
the committee wants
They
Alabama
perform
in the
so
playoffs.
well
But
in those playoff games.
I don't think Bama has had as strong of a season as people think.
No,
they lost to
struggled
unranked
against
UNM
they
or
lo-
A&M.
Yeah, they struggled against LSU's defense, severely struggled, and they struggled against Auburn.
They just went to 4 overtimes
Yeah.
versus unranked Auburn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
I don't see them as the strength that everybody else does.
This is probably one of the worst seasons they've had
All right,
in
so
a long time.
last year.
what are
was
your
rough.
guys' for then, going in?
I guess I'll go Georgia. I think Michigan wins against Iowa, so I'll go Georgia, Michigan, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, maybe in that order.
Okay.
I go Georgia. I just simply cannot have Michigan at 2. I go,
But then you're saying they'll lose to Iowa.
no, I just can't
Okay.
do Michigan
What's
at 2.
someone different?
So I go Georgia. Oh, I guess Michigan. Okay, we'll do Georgia. We'll do Georgia, Michigan, Oklahoma State. And then I say you leave Bama in
Okay.
over
Okay.
Cincy.
That's fair.
Even if they lose to Georgia?
I would,
Depending on
Okay.
how the
got
game
it. Got it.
goes.
yeah, I would just do Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, and Alabama. I think it'll stay the same as
Okay.
what it's kind of been.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've settled college football playoffs. Should we move on to college basketball?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Let's do it.
This
yeah.
has been an interesting season so far. Huh?
Interesting start to our college basketball season.
Yes.
100%. I was actually, so last week I was at Vegas with my mom. Lucky enough, she took me to the game, Duke versus Gonzaga.
Oh, wow.
Super cool environment. It was 20,389 people were in attendance. It was the biggest, I think, crowd that they've ever had for a college basketball game in Nevada history.
Wow.
So that was really cool to see, and it was really anticipated because Paolo Benchero and Chet Holmgren, kind of like the 2 top prospects going into the NBA potentially, were playing each other for the first time. And my biggest takeaways, well, first off, Duke took the game 84-81,
Right.
Yep.
which leaped them up to the number 1 seed overall because Gonzaga was number 1 going into that game.
Yep.
But my biggest takeaway was Paolo Benchero, who's the power forward for Duke, is like the real deal because he's 6'10", 250 pounds, only 19 years old, but he has a handle. He can create his own shot and actually hit the shot because he can shoot it really well from 3,
Yeah.
which translates to the NBA right away. And yeah,
So I've seen he's been struggling immensely with constant cramps happening through games, and he literally averages of losing 7 pounds a game.
it's interesting. I don't know if that will affect his draft stock because if that wasn't the case, he would easily be the number 1 pick in my opinion.
Do you think it has something to do with like nutrition, and we're seeing like the NBA, like doctors and nutritionists can fix something that Duke didn't?
No, because these power teams in all of sports, lacrosse, football, hockey, basketball, they have the top nutrition
Yeah.
programs that I've ever seen.
It's
Yeah.
just so crazy. I don't think we've ever seen anything like it.
It's really weird. I think it's a medical issue. I think we'll probably learn more information as like it gets released, but
Yeah.
as of right now, yeah, it was kind of weird to see that.
Because
But
it seems to be a new thing for him as well.
Yeah. I don't.
How
Yeah.
about that Ohio State-Duke game?
yes, yeah, that was a big upset.
So Ohio State was not ranked at the
Unranked.
time of this game. They
Yeah.
went in unranked with their losses to Xavier.
Right.
They
Yeah.
have 2 losses. But Ohio State does have 2 top 25 wins.
Well, and I think it's crazy on the Duke end. Like Duke had just beat Gonzaga, and then
Going
they're
into
playing
being the
unranked.
number 1 team.
So do you think it was a thing of too much confidence where we just beat the number 1 and
I
No,
think-
I think Ohio State is a strong team. Going into college basketball every year, Ohio State is ranked pretty much in basketball, and then they have these losses. And I don't think that they're a top 5 or even 10 team, but I think that they're a strong enough team to be competing with those top 5 and 10 teams.
I agree with that. I
every year.
think even though Ohio State, even though they might have those years where they're top 5, even when they aren't that, they're still a really hard team to compete with.
Yeah.
So, like, they obviously gave Duke the business and took the win.
I think it's important to know with college basketball, like, for a long time, the trend, the number one team at the end of the season pretty much always has at least 1 or 2 losses, most of the time one. So I don't think anybody at Gonzaga or Duke is overly worried about these losses on their record. Gonzaga did have a scare after playing Duke. They played Tarleton, who's 1-16 and only beat them 64-55. So that was a bit of a scare. But at the end of the day, I don't think any of these teams are nervous yet.
No, absolutely not. I think Duke and Gonzaga are for sure the top 2 teams in the nation as of right now.
I agree.
But I think that's what makes college basketball so exciting is that there's constantly these upsets. And that's what makes March Madness so exciting.
Oh,
and it's probably like one of the most watched playoff competitions in the country is because there are these constant upsets, which makes the sport really exciting, and which is why I personally think college basketball is a lot more exciting than NBA basketball.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that.
Yeah, well, I would disagree, but...
Big NBA guy over here.
Big NBA guy.
We'll see how the season plays out.
Cool.
So if we want to start transitioning over to baseball, there has been a lot going on in baseball that a lot of people don't really understand. So Christy, if you kind of want to explain what's happening right now.
So in baseball right now, the collective bargaining agreement, which is most often referred to as the CBA, just expired. It was a 27-year-long agreement. And basically what the CBA is an agreement between MLB owners and MLB players. And it just is an agreement about basically the rules about baseball, revenue sharing and free agency rules and just various things. And when that agreement expires, in the past, owners have chosen to lock out players. And that's what we're seeing again. So baseball is currently in a lockout.
Since when? The last time that happened was 1994?
1994. The last lockout lasted August 12th, 1994 to April 2nd, 1995. So we've seen it historically last several months. It'll be interesting to see. A lot of people are predicting February or March for a new agreement to be reached. But both sides, owners and players, are kind of stuck in their own ways right now.
So what I've heard is that the owners basically want a longer postseason because players, they basically essentially make more money during the postseason because for those of you that don't know, the players do not get paid during the off season. So the owners make a lot of money.
Yes, the players
want more revenue shares.
So there's a bunch of big kind of questions left on the table right now that I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens in the coming months because neither party is willing to kind of give up anything.
Yeah, and it's so new too.
It's so new and it's messy, but what we did see because of this expiring CBA is
a lot of early
signings. So for those at home who don't know, our free agency, most of the big names don't really sign until February when spring training is starting, catchers and pitchers are reporting. Those are when the biggest signings come. And we saw so many signings in November because most of the players were wanting to get their contracts signed before the lockout because once the lockout starts, agents can't talk to teams can't talk to players. It's a whole thing. So
what do we think is our biggest signing? Because I personally believe that Corey Seeger going to the Texas Rangers is arguably the biggest signing and is a huge loss for the Dodgers organization.
Huge loss for the Dodgers. The Dodgers still have a shortstop in Trey Turner. So we'll see what they kind of do after the lockout. But yes, huge signing for the Rangers. I think we've also seen the Rangers be bigger spenders. We've never really seen them be as big spenders as they have this offseason. I agree. They're in a rebuilding year. So Corey Seager's 10-year, $325 million contract, massive. Haven't seen contracts like this often.
But this is a guy who was Rookie of the Year.
Oh my gosh, World Series MVP, NLCS MVP. He does it all. He's a phenomenal player.
He's a big playmaker.
Oh, yeah.
He has definitely...
He's the cornerstone of a team.
Yeah.
So, and we saw the Rangers also strengthen their infield with second baseman Marcus Semien on a 7-year, $175 million deal. They also signed starting pitcher John Gray to 4 years, $56 million. So we're seeing them be big spenders. We're also seeing other teams be big spenders that haven't in the past. The Tigers signed Javier Baez to a 6-year, $140 million deal, which is kind of not their usual. The Tigers aren't big spenders either. So we're seeing these big names. I'm interested to see, when the new agreement is reached, what happens, because there's still a lot of big names on the board. So I'm wondering if we'll see those big teams, Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, big teams, go out and spend that money in February or whenever the new agreement is reached.
I'd love to know your guys' opinion, when do you think that this agreement, because I personally don't think we're going to have an agreement until arguably April or May.
I'd say March. I think it's, I don't see an agreement or nice friendliness being made between owners and players anytime soon. And I don't think either side wants to miss any games. So if they do it in March, then they miss some spring training, which I think is kind of, they don't mind missing, but they don't miss much actual season, regular season.
Yeah.
When do you think?
I think that we should transition into our next topic. That's what I think. Which is
College
College
coaches.
coaches.
College
So
coaching.
this has been a huge topic of discussion
Yes.
within the last week or so. We have one of the most talked about college football coaches, Lincoln Riley, heading to USC
yeah.
on a massive contract. I'm talking USC bought
Massive
both
contract.
of his homes in Oklahoma
Yeah.
for $500,000 more than the asking price. So he essentially pockets $1 million.
Yeah.
And then his family gets the use of the private jet
Yep.
whenever they want to.
Yep.
And then we see about 6 massive decommits from Oklahoma,
Yep.
one of them
Combat,
being
yeah.
the number 2 quarterback in the 2023 class,
Yeah.
who then commits to USC.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm wondering about the coach carousel situation, what y'all think about, should there be a window similar to recruiting and all of those things where coaches are allowed to make moves? Because I think we see Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Brian Kelly, these are teams that are still in the mix for the
I was gonna
playoffs,
say, yeah,
big
it's
bowl games.
Right in the
Yeah.
middle. It's kind of weird to think that they would just leave.
Right. So
Yeah.
should there be, in order to, protect players or
Yeah.
protect teams, should there be a window where coaches are allowed to make moves that starts after the season and
Yeah.
goes till?
I 100% agree with that. I don't think that coaches should be allowed to make those moves until the season has ended. And obviously it's great for USC because USC isn't going into that Pac-12 championship and isn't going into the playoffs. So
They
it's
didn't
great for
qualify
them.
a bowl game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So it's great for them to get Lincoln Riley right away and start working with their players. And it's also huge because signing day isn't until February.
Right.
So they now they have Lincoln Riley come over and they have these 2-3 months left to get players to commit to USC.
And Lincoln Riley, they announced it was Sunday that Lincoln Riley was announced as the USC head coach, and that's also conveniently the day the window opened for coaches to visit recruits, official visit to recruits.
Yeah.
So very convenient that the Oklahoma number 2 quarterback in the nation decommitted right when Lincoln
Well,
Riley and
you
can
already
go
know
visit
that-
his
you al-
house.
you already
Who's
know
from
that-
Southern California.
Yeah. They're already talking before that.
Oh, sure.
This
that
trade has
point.
been in the
It's-
works
it's-
for
100%.
time.
But I think, it's just very convenient that it fell on those dates.
So let's talk about Brian Kelly and how
Yes.
his move is ultimately affecting the college playoff
Football
committee
playoffs.
from putting them in the top 4. I mean, they literally said so. So
Yeah.
I think that's huge. And also we're talking about conveniently, what's funny is that Brian Kelly wants to go to UF.
Right.
UF says no. UF hires LSU's recruiting coordinator. Brian Kelly goes to LSU.
It's interesting. Coaches carousels are interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think about
Fresno, there's that.
Well,
Fresno
I just,
State
in
guy,
general,
too. Yeah.
like, coaches, like we saw with Lincoln Riley, I'm not leaving, I'm not going to LSU,
Well, I
don't
think
worry.
he more respectively said, I'm not going to LSU.
Ryan Kelly, it getting
Yeah.
leaked in the media, and then having to send his people.
Yeah, I think it's tough for coaches because you have to still have that grasp of your team. So you don't want, if players know that you're out, they're not going to be in.
And they're not going to perform as well. I mean,
Well, and we even saw it with Brian Harsin here at Boise State last year, where it got leaked in the media first, and then players found out about it. So I think it's really hard on coaches.
But a lot of players,
all around.
like, as you can see with this number 2 commit for the 2023 class, a huge factor in players' decisions to go to schools is the head coach.
Oh,
I mean,
100%.
it's a massive decision. So, like, for the players to not even know, I mean, these head coaches are like father figures for a lot of these players. And so for these players to not even know that their coach is leaving, I'd be furious.
Yeah.
Do you think Brian Kelly leaving keeps Notre Dame from getting out in the playoffs?
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
So they hired their defensive
interim.
coordinator,
Yeah.
which is great.
Great.
And he actually has made a huge, huge impact on Notre Dame's defense. They're ranked, I believe, 6th in interceptions and defensive touchdowns, and they're ranked 7 in sacks this year, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But how is he going to translate that offensive side into being the head coach as well?
That would be the question.
That's the question.
I think there's a lot of questions up in the air about Notre Dame,
Yeah.
and the fact that they can't do anything about this week, and answer some of those questions is going to be
That's
hard
why I
for
was
them.
leaving them off of my, making the playoffs.
Yeah, because
It's
they don't
gonna-
have that
They
game.
don't have a game
Exactly.
to answer
To
any
prove
questions.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I genuinely believe that Notre Dame will not get into the playoffs because of Brian Kelly leaving.
I
Who are y'all's winners of the coaching carousel? Schools.
Oh, Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, I think 100%,
absolutely.
yeah,
SC and
because
Lincoln Riley.
USC is like a huge program that hasn't been on the map, and like
Let me tell
when
you
was
guys
the last
too.
time? It's like
I went to Oklahoma.
Tell us, Alex.
yeah.
I went to Oklahoma my freshman year of college, okay? That man was so beloved by every single person in Norman, Oklahoma. I mean, really, he's an amazing guy on and off the field, and he brought in so many top recruits for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
He's a recruiting guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is an amazing recruiter, and I think that's what USC needs the most because they've kind of fell off in the last 5 years.
Right.
And what they need is those big top recruits that they got 10 years ago.
Well, and I think USC is set up in the perfect position because not only do they have the coach now, but they also have the location
Southern
with the
California,
NIL deals.
yeah.
Like you're put in such a good position,
Yeah.
So I think I would agree. USC and Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, he'll have
Yeah.
a lot of success for sure.
Yeah. All right, should we move on?
Yes,
Let's
so
do
let's
it.
get into the second segment. So we're going to be talking about more local sports news by starting off with what we thought was going to be a very promising year for our Boise State Broncos football team. The Broncos finished the season with an overall 7-5 record, missing out on the Mountain West Championship game and their chance to play in a bowl game. I mean, this has to be the first year in a long
I think
time.
they'll still play in a bowl game. They're bowl eligible. They won 7 games. And
They're
right now
4-3. I also forgot to mention they're 4-3 in the Mountain West.
Yeah.
Yes,
Conference.
7-5 overall. So they'll still play in a bowl game. Right now, CBS has them predicted to play against Army in the First Responder Bowl on the 28th, which historically hasn't gone well for Boise State. The last time they played in the First Responder Bowl, it got canceled because of lightning. So fingers crossed, there's not any weather issues. But also, people are talking about the possibility of playing in the Idaho Potato Bowl, which would not be as highly ranked of a bowl, but I think there is some pull for coaches and players to want to play a bowl game at home. I don't know, what do you guys think
Oh,
about?
absolutely. I mean, just the atmosphere
Yeah.
of like a game when you're playing at home. Like even you saw with that Michigan-Ohio State game, that
Yeah.
atmosphere was wild, and to be able to play at home for players is huge.
Fans would definitely show out for sure.
Oh.
But it is weird to see Boise State not winning as much because I don't know if you guys seen that stat, but Boise State football has the highest winning percentage out of any school
Ever.
Yeah.
Like even over Alabama,
college football.
over
Yep.
Ohio State, all those top schools. Partly due because we do play in the Mountain West, but it doesn't
But
mean
that's
that,
not saying this much after this
exactly,
season,
yeah,
you know?
exactly,
Saying-
yeah.
Yeah, the dominance of Boise State football has definitely gone down some this year, but I think, new coaching staff.
Complete new coaching staff.
Boise State fans are quick to put those coaches under fire, and we've seen that very quickly this year. So, personally, I'm sitting back. I'm going to see, what they do next year, and hopefully, this coaching staff is working together and they've got it figured out for next year.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of speaking to a few of the players for Boise State, in which they all assured that, it had nothing to do with the coaching staff.
Yep.
It's new. It's a
new
new
era.
environment. It's new coaching staff, so things are being changed.
Yes.
And that has a lot of effect on players
Yes.
because they're used to being coached a certain way, and now you have a whole new coaching staff coming in, being coached a different way. But one of the things that I was assured in my interviews was that the new coach, Andy Avalos, has actually brought in a more family
Yes, I've heard the same
environment
thing.
and atmosphere than Brian Harsin did.
Yeah, everybody I've talked to has said they really enjoy the new coaches, so I think it's just a first year thing.
It's definitely not something you want to blow up after 1 year.
No, absolutely not.
For sure. And then it's also bringing in the talent, having the right pieces in place. Because I don't know about you guys, how you feel about, Hank at quarterback. If that, I know that's a topic of discussion.
I know it is, because
that a lot of students have.
I think he has the ability to be a good quarterback. I don't think he has the ability to be a great one.
I agree with that.
I think he panics severely.
That's what I've noticed. Is in those pressure moments is when
he really
when you
panics.
need that play.
I would also like to say our offensive line
was the least strong.
Struggled this year. It hasn't been the highlight of our team. Our center was a rotating door this year.
Yes.
So I think, yes, we can talk about the quarterback all day long, but I think historically the quarterback gets blamed for a lot of
that's fair.
things that aren't their fault. So again, I'm interested to see. This was Hank's first full season playing college football.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, because his freshman year he got injured. Last year was the COVID year. So I'm interested to see, what he does next year, how he develops.
Like, just as fans, watching a game, everyone's so quick to blame the quarterback. And that's because I feel like a lot of people don't fully understand football and how the offensive line is a major factor to how much time the quarterback is given
Probably
to throw the ball.
The
most
important
factor.
The most
like,
important.
actually,
Absolutely.
It's the same on defense.
I mean,
too.
it's
whoever wins the line.
It's a 2-second difference to throw the ball versus a 7-second difference to throw the ball, and that's huge. Huge.
Also, because we're talking about quarterbacks, Jack Sears just announced yesterday. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Andrew.
Well, no, I just noticed that, he is going to transfer, so
he's
we don't
entering
really
the transfer portal,
unless we bring in another guy, then we'll just have to...
Well, I think people are really excited about Taylon Green as a prospect. He redshirted freshman this year. He only played in 3 games, so he can still play as the backup in a bowl game and keep that redshirt year. And I think people are really excited about seeing him. I know some players on the team have said he's the fastest outright person on the team, and that's a lot to say for a quarterback. So I think
it might be an opportunity to kind of change the offense around too when you have a running quarterback.
Yes, I think
it opens up a lot more doors for an offense because the defense not only has to worry about the quarterback throwing, but now they also have to consider that a whole new run game opens up.
And especially in college too, you can get really creative with your play calls to be able to do trick plays and whatnot.
I think I'm excited to see where this football team goes next year.
Yeah.
So let's start talking about Boise State basketball because the season just started.
Andrew, run us through it.
Well, we are not looking so hot right now. We're 3-4. The bottom of the standings in the Mountain West, and the one piece of the Cal State game where we lost 46-39, kind of like a high school game with that score, you would think. But
22% field goal shooting percentage.
22 has to be one of the worst field goal percentages I've actually ever seen. I think partly we lost Derek Alston Jr.,
Big
Justinian
piece.
Jessup,
Ray J. Dennis.
Ray J. Dennis.
Big piece.
Ray J could have been. I think he was going to be a star for us, and that sucked when he lost or left.
Yeah.
But definitely losing Derek and Justinian, because those are 2 NBA caliber players as they're in the NBA right now. So that's a lot to replace, and I think talent-wise, we are kind of missing some pieces.
So what do you do as a coach? I mean, in
how,
this situation.
how worried is Leon Rice?
Yeah.
Leon's a really good coach. I was a manager my freshman year, and I see the culture that he brings to the team, and it's a really good family environment and stuff. I just think that when you lack certain talent and pieces, you do have to have really good chemistry. And as of right now, it's not really showing. The one upside thing you can take away with some upside is that they have 3 games that they've only lost by 8 points or less. So
there's improvement.
Exactly.
There's
so it's like
room
that
for
could
improvement.
totally end up. You could be
those could be
6
wins.
and 3, you know, or whatever the case is.
And I think it's important to note we're still in preseason.
Yeah,
Conference
absolutely.
play hasn't started.
Yeah.
So yes, we are in the dead last of conference standings, which I'm sure Boise State fans at home are not very excited about. But I think conference hasn't started. So let's wait till conference. Give him a chance.
I
And
agree.
you lose 2 of your starting players, which are being replaced by 2 guys who never have started before.
Exactly.
And there's only 5 guys on the court for your team in a basketball game. So that's 2 out of 5 players, and that's reversing the entire chemistry of the team.
Yeah. It takes a while to build up that chemistry throughout the year, and who knows, maybe they go on a run later in the year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would stay hopeful though. I would stay hopeful.
Agreed. Should we
Yeah.
move on to the Steelheads?
Let's do it.
Yes.
do it.
So Boise State, or Boise, I should say,
Yeah.
we have a minor league hockey team here called the Idaho Steelheads.
Yep.
And not only is it really fun, I've been
Really
to a
fun
few of those
games.
games. I
Yeah.
mean, minor league hockey is great. You sit on the boards for $30 for a ticket price, and it's also more fun because they just hit each other more. Like, seriously, minor league hockey is so much fun.
Well, because they're trying to,
there's so much more fighting, and the NHL used to be like that, and it's changed a lot lately. Rarely you're going to go to a game in the NHL now where you're going to get a good fight. But that's the excitement of the minor league games, is that you still have that kind of rowdiness that the NHL used to be.
I think for those of you who at home haven't been to a Steelheads game, go. It's so fun. It's pretty cheap to get good tickets.
Yes.
So, they went 4-6 on their most recent homestand. And Captain AJ White said that it was a good start, and as long as they keep winning on home ice, it's going to be good for us in the long run, which I think everybody can agree with.
Yeah. And Christy, tell us they just had a player recently moved up to the Dallas Stars minor league
so
team.
they've actually had 3 players moved up this month. We got Dawson Bartow, Adam Scheel. Those are defensemen that got called up earlier this month. And then forward Yahini Aksintiuk got recalled by the Dallas Stars to the Texas Stars this month. And he was killing it as a rookie.
Absolutely.
He was second in ECHL, which is the hockey league that the Steelheads play in. He was second in those rookies in goals scored, and then third in rookie scoring, and he led the Steelheads in goals and scoring. So the Steelheads will obviously miss him, but I think they're excited for his future, in the Dallas Stars organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So obviously, the Steelhead seems to be a good program for guys to come in out of college. For those of you that don't know also, college drafting is very similar to baseball drafting. A lot of guys are drafted prior to actually entering the majors, and they spend about, what would you say, 5 years in the minors? Unless you're this standout player in the top 10, but most guys are getting drafted to the majors, but not actually ending up in the majors.
Yeah.
Similar to
3 years
baseball, very different from football and basketball.
Huge. Well, that's why
Because there are no
you
minors.
notice too.
There are no minors.
Yeah.
Well, for
Well,
football.
for
Basketball has the G League.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's what you have to notice too, is that in the past, for hockey especially, a lot of guys, hockey, I mean, is a huge international game. That's where I feel it differs from a lot of other sports, is that they are grabbing guys from every country around the world. But you notice a lot of these Canadian players and these U.S. players are actually going to college now and getting their education rather than spending these 5 years in the league because there's no telling if they're going to make it to the majors or not.
Yeah.
And it's a physical sport too, so if you get an
Physical
injury and
sports.
you're out, then, you know.
Yeah, so it's
Definitely.
very exciting for these Steelheads prospects to be called up.
Yeah.
We're very excited to see, you know, what the Steelheads do this season.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of what you guys were
Yes.
saying, I know nothing about hockey, so if you want to go to a game, I've been to a game, it's still super fun.
And Andrew will go to a game with you guys
Yeah,
this week.
exactly, yeah,
if anybody
yeah,
wants to
yeah.
go to a game.
Yeah. But yeah, you could know absolutely nothing what's happening, and you could still have a great time.
Yeah, it's a great
so,
sport.
Yeah, good
Yep.
sport.
Okay.
Are we ready to play a game?
Yes.
I think so, yeah. So to start wrapping up the show, I'd like to introduce you all to a segment that we refer to as the 2-minute drill. Each episode, we'll be putting 2 minutes on the clock and giving myself, Alex, or Christy a sports topic to debate about. One of us will be the mediator, while the other two will debate for 2 minutes, going back and forth, attempting to win the argument. After the time is up, whoever the mediator is will decide who won the debate. Throughout the year, we'll keep track of how many points each of us have won to see who the ultimate winner is. Today, our first debate is going to be about LeBron James and Michael Jordan, deciding which player is the greatest of all time. With that being said, let's see who takes the win in our very first edition of the 2-minute drill.
So, Kirsty, yeah. Oh.
Game time, baby.
Game time, baby.
Game time.
All right.
Yeah, so Christy will be the mediator for
Yes,
this. Yes,
I'm going to be mediating. We have two people who have very strong opinions
Oh, yes.
on our greatest of all time debate.
Yes.
Andrew and Alex
Oh,
are going to be debating today. I've got my whistle just in case
Yeah.
it gets out of hand. But I'm going to see how y'all do.
So basically, just to preface this, I am someone who very strongly dislikes LeBron James. And he is someone who very strongly admires LeBron James.
I do.
So we're going
So
to get
this
into
is-
this.
this
It's
is
going to
gonna
get
be
nitty and it's going to get gritty.
It,
Yep.
it might get
Oh,
a bit heated. So hold on to your whatever you got, your cables, whatever you got there while you're watching. But are y'all ready? I'm going to start a timer on my phone.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I will give you the first. I will let you talk first. Unless you want me to go first. I can go first.
Well,
What's up to you?
I'm going to start.
Okay,
Okay.
ready? Ready?
Go ahead.
3, 2, 1, go.
I'm going to start by saying that I believe that the 80s and 90s era of basketball, we can all collectively say is a much tougher era of basketball.
More
but
physical.
I think defensively, the defense was 10 times better than the defense that is played now in the NBA.
I would say it was definitely more physical, and that point is valid, but today's NBA players are so much more skilled than the players that were playing back then. Sure, those players were able to run over someone and take their head off while they're going to the basket, but you were not seeing 7-foot players doing step-back threes and players shooting from half court.
All right, so we can agree the game's evolved.
Yes.
So we have Jordan who averaged over 40 points per game in an NBA record for 5 playoff series. LeBron hasn't done that in 1 playoff series.
Okay, well, Michael Jordan has also been a part of the greatest team of all time in both of his scenarios that he went on a three-peat. Which respect, I mean, if you have Michael Jordan as number 1, I cannot be super mad about that because I think LeBron's 1, Michael Jordan's 2, and I think it's a close comparison. But I think when you look at what LeBron has done with less, he has been able to take teams way farther than what Michael ever was able to do.
Okay, so here's
Yeah.
no. I think that both of them were great leaders.
Yeah.
But I think Michael Jordan had this presence to him
Yeah.
that LeBron will never have as a leader.
Okay.
For example, let's just say
30 seconds.
Michael Jordan is a better defender. He is a 9-time all-defensive first-team player.
Okay, well,
whereas
can
LeBron is 5
can Michael
times.
Jordan guard a power forward? Because LeBron's 6'9", 265 pounds. I would say, okay, and the fact that LeBron hasn't won a Defensive Player of the Year is just, it makes no sense to me because he's been one of the top I think he's one of the most underrated defenders, in my opinion.
I disagree.
You can say
Yeah, I
that. You
disagree
can say
with
that.
that.
Okay.
2,
LeBron's been to 10 championships. Michael's been to whatever.
Okay, so that was our 2-minute
That's
drill.
not enough time
Our
for
first
me.
I know. I could do this all day.
I think Andrew and Alex could have gone all day on LeBron and Jordan. I've witnessed some of it.
I think we got a lot of our points in before we even
just
started.
did this live.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so.
But that was very, very close. And also I should preface this with I'm unbiased. I don't have a favorite in the LeBron Jordan debut.
I don't know about
Other than
that.
you're a Lakers fan.
Other than she's a Lakers fan.
I'm a Lakers fan, but that doesn't mean I like LeBron or Jordan more.
Okay.
So I think they're 1-2, but they always go back and forth in my book. So very close, but I think Alex took this time with the stats. She came with the stats.
Come on, no, whatever.
So I'm taking
I will
Alex.
have to say Andrew winged it, and I did a lot of research.
I
so
did wing it.
He winged it, and I did a lot of research. But I will take my dub,
Yes.
and I'll take the most points for this episode.
Okay, you got one.
So Alex
one.
got her first 2-minute drill win.
You know
We'll
it.
see how it plays out in future episodes. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Congrats to our first official 2-minute drill winner, Alex. And a big thank you to all of you for joining us on our first episode. Finally, we couldn't do this without our producer and our crew, so to each of them, we send all of our gratitude. I'm Christy Amstutz.
I'm Alex East.
And I'm Andrew Vincent. Join us next time on Beyond the Whistle for all your sports needs.